Hello, welcome back to my channel if you're new here. My name is Bree and I make bookish videos. Today's video is going to be my wrap up for the month of March. It feels like March was so long and I felt like it was never ending, but we're here now and I'm here to wrap up all the books that I read. Read a total of 9 books and it was a really good reading month for me, I think, but bad for just like life. So, it's all about balance. So I have quite a few books to talk to you about and I'm excited to get into it. So let's just get started with the video. So I'm really bad about forgetting books that I didn't read physically. So I'm going to start with those so that I don't forget them, and I wrote them down here so that I will remember. So the first one I read was A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I think it's my 4th T. Kingfisher book. So far I've read Nettle and Bone, What Moves the Dead, Sword Heart, and now A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. And I think Nettle and Bone is still my favorite, but I think it would go, if I was ranking them, it would go Nettle and Bone, A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, Sword Heart. Actually, I think Sword Heart and A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking are tied, and then it would be What Moves the Dead. I think I just like her more fantasy stuff a little bit more than the horror, but I've only read one horror to really say that. So this one is about this girl who works in a bakery. She lives with her aunt and uncle, and she has like a bit of magic, but really what she can do is she can work with dough really well. And so she has one time brought a little sourdough to life, and now it lives in the basement and it's kind of mean and they have to feed it and stuff. But for the most part, she can just do small magic with the dough. So they own a bakery and it's pretty popular, and she just like really doesn't have a ton of magic. And they live in this society where there is magic users, and some are more powerful than others, and some will help the, like, it's not really a king and queen, but it's like almost like a magistrate. I'm not exactly sure how you would describe it. They work for them and they can do like more powerful magic. So she's like, I think she's supposed to be like 13, so this does read a little bit like middle grade. One morning she comes in and she finds a body in her bakery, and it's a woman's been murdered. And then all of a sudden, when she calls for help and they bring help, they accuse her. She is released, but she decides to help find whoever did it, and it leads her on this big adventure. And T. Kingfisher does really just cozy stories really well. They're always a little bit ridiculous. They're not quite as wholesome as like a Legends and Lattes in terms of she can sometimes have like violence and things happening, but it always feels pretty lighthearted to me. And I really enjoyed this one. It does lean, like I said, more towards middle grade, so I thought it was still fun, but if you don't really like that middle grade writing style anymore, you feel like you want a more adult, this maybe isn't the one to pick up. But I really had a really fun time. I listened to the audiobook and I enjoyed it a lot. I thought that our main character, I can't remember her name at the moment, I thought she was just a really good perspective to follow, and she was kind of nervous and she didn't really know a lot. She wasn't like a very experienced magic user, and so it was fun to follow her as she's trying to figure out how to do all these things. She's kind of put in these positions where she has to help save people and she doesn't know how to do that, and so it's like a hero story of sorts, but when she's really like kind of clunking through it, and I really loved that about it. And again, there's companions. She does like animal companions, or like this one is a gingerbread man, just really well, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I think she does like a kind of a ragtag group of characters really well. So yeah, I had fun with that. Then the next book I read was a novella, and this I read for the Transwrite Readathon, and it's called Fina by Nino Capri. Yeah, and in this we're following we're following one perspective, but it's 2 characters, and they both broke up and they're going to work at, basically it's like an IKEA, and the character we're following, in her head, and character names are really hard for me at the moment, and they have recently broken up and she had to take a shift because this one guy doesn't show up, and so she is worried about seeing her old partner there, and because they're not supposed to work together anymore, like they set it up so they wouldn't have to see each other to make the breakup easier, but now they will. And then some stuff starts going on at the IKEA and it's like multiple dimensions, and they have to go save this woman who's gone, like a customer who's gone through it. And I thought it was really fun. It was a fast novella. It's only like 90 pages maybe, and I wish it was just a slightly longer because I wanted to be in the world just like a little bit longer, because I think there was so many cool concepts that I felt like I just wanted to expand and sit in that dimension, because they go through like a couple dimensions, I think two, and I wish we had more time to like explore that dimension. But I thought it was really fun, and I definitely will be continuing. It's a series, but they're like kind of spin-offs. So the next one is following the person who didn't show up for work, which I find really fun. So I am definitely going to be continuing, and I really enjoyed it. And I think if you're looking for a short novella, kind of sci-fi, but like fun, I would check this out because it was really good. So now on to the physical books. I'm just going to kind of go down the list. I'm going to start with these two because I feel like I kind of need to talk about them together. But that is The Anatomist's Wife and The Mortal Arts by Annalee Hubert. This is the first one in the Lady Darby Mystery series, and this is the second. So I read these at the end of the month, and I just really wasn't sure what I was feeling like. I'm just going to hold this one up. And I decided to pick this one up even though it was going to be starting another series, and I really am happy I did because I've been looking for another historical mystery series that reminds me of Rexford and Sloane, or it like kind of gives me that same feeling that Rexford and Sloane did, and this one was finally it. I think, sorry if you can hear birds, there's like, they're going crazy outside. I think we have a nest out there. I'm for some reason really picky with my historical mysteries, and a lot of them haven't really been my favorite, and I don't know what it is in historical mysteries that I need to really like them, but this one had it. And I still can't tell you what it was because it was just something that clicked, and I'm not exactly sure what it is. But this is following Lady Darby, and she was married to an anatomist, and he died, and she was kind of looked at, not for his death, but because she helped him. Basically, he would autopsy bodies, and she would draw them for him because he was a really bad drawer. He was a very bad artist, and she would do it, and she was forced into this. And then when he died and all his secrets came out about what he was making her do, everybody looked at her like she was crazy because it was very bad form for a woman to do this. And so she's very much ostracized from society. She's moving back in with her sister and her brother-in-law, and they're very caring for her, but besides them, she really doesn't have a lot of people who will even socialize with her. And they're having a party at their house with a bunch of guests, and one of them is murdered, and she's the only one in the area who even knows what to look for at bodies. And there's coincidentally a lord who also works as like an inquiry agent a lot of times, and his name is Mr. Gage, and he is going to start solving the mystery while they're waiting for, like, I don't know, Scotland Yard or whatever to come. This is set in Scotland in the 1830s, by the way. And so they have to work together to figure out what's going on. And a lot of people think that she did it because of her history, and so she's also trying to prove that she didn't do it. And this one was really good. I really, really enjoyed it. I flew through it, and I just feel like I really connected with Lady Darby and Mr. Gage, and I thought the way they explored like her situation was really good, and I really enjoyed it. So this one's following her longtime family friends, and their brother was missing a long time ago, and no one ever knew what happened to him, and so it's kind of solving what went on with him. And then there's been some murders in the town, and they're just trying to figure out everything. And this deals a lot with like PTSD, and I thought that it seemed like she was handling it with a lot of care, and it's like PTSD from war. And she also explored that in her first book of the Verity Kent series that I read, and I really enjoyed that one as well. I feel like she did do, like, she looked at it from a lot of angles, and I appreciate that about this. And as someone who doesn't have PTSD, I can't really speak to the representation, but I did think that from what I read, it felt like she really did her research on it, so I appreciated that. But I definitely liked this one the most, and this one I enjoyed, but this one was just the best one so far for me. So these are these two ones, and I am glad I have another historical mystery series to read going forward. There's 11 books in the series, so I have a lot I can get to. So then let's talk about Chain of Thorns. Nope, Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This is the first in the Last Hours series. I read the Infernal Devices last month and flew through them, and then I started this one, and this one is the aftermath of the first one, so this is like years later, and it's following actually the children of a lot of characters in the Infernal Devices, so they are pretty connected. And in this, there hasn't been a lot of demons for a long time. If you don't know, shadow hunters kind of are descendants from angels, and they fight demons and kill off the demons and protect like humans, which they call mundanes, and downworlders, which they call like vampires and werewolves and things like that. This is following shadow hunters who really haven't had a lot of conflict in a lot of years because there hasn't been any real demon sightings. So they've had training, but they're not really had any fights. So it's following that, and then demons start popping up and they've got to figure out what's going on. I enjoyed this one as well. I thought that it was exploring a lot more than she's done before. There's like alcoholism and there's other like mental health things that everyone's like kind of going through, and I thought that it was interesting that she's really trying to explore this, and I'm interested to see if she can go deeper with those ideas. But this kind of felt like really a setup for the rest of the series, and I found that I really do like when a book kind of wraps up like a mystery or an element within the first book, and then you can go to the next one, and then there's an overarching theme plot, I guess, through the whole series. And this one just felt like a lot of pages because it's like 600 pages or something, 500 something, for like not a lot happening. But I do like her characters, and I enjoy just seeing everyone's growth, and it's historical fantasy. So I just feel like those things really catch me, and I'm enjoying it, but it's not my favorite, but it just feels very nostalgic too because I was so obsessed with the Shadowhunters world when I was in high school. So it's good to be back and just, I'm reading it for nostalgia purposes and I'm having a good time. Then my husband and I read this together and the book finally came. And this is Trust of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. We did the book box that he did because my husband's favorite author is Brandon Sanderson, and I really enjoy his stories as well. And so when he was doing the Kickstarter, we definitely signed up for it. And so the book finally came. It's beautiful. There's some beautiful illustrations in here. I'll just show you the first one. Like, they're gorgeous. It's a really well-made edition too, and I love these end pages. So this is kind of a cozy fantasy. So this is within Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. So he has like a bunch of worlds that are all interlinked, and it's following Tress, and basically she is in love with the Lord's son, and they have a lot of back and forth between them that's very sweet. And then one day he is sent off with his father to go find a bride, and he is trying to put his father off throughout this series, and he keeps sending her cups and things like that, so she's not very worried about it. But then one day the Lord comes back without him, and no one will tell her what happened to him, and so she decides she's going to go find Charlie, who is the Lord's son, and save him. And so she is going to be the hero of the story and save her man. And I guess it was like kind of thought about as like he said he got the idea from like a Princess Bride, but reversed. It was fun. It was cute. It was definitely like a cozy fantasy, I feel like. I think for me, the main reason that I didn't love it quite as much as I was hoping to is I realized that I don't think I'm a very adventure person in terms of being on like a boat. There are some I've liked, but this takes place a lot on a ship, and I just don't know if that's just not my thing, because I just felt like we were on the ship for a lot and it didn't feel like progress, like moving forward, even though there was. It just felt a little slow for me, so I think I could have enjoyed it more if we maybe made stops more along the way. But I did enjoy, like, he always has his characters trying to figure out the magic, and so you're kind of learning the magic as she's like figuring it out. And the way this world works is there's spores that if they get a drop of water, they like explode, and so it's very dangerous because they can like go down your throat and like kill you. And that sounds very scary, but like really in here it's not quite as scary as it seems, at least the way like she views it. So there's a lot about like how that works and making it work for them and how they power their ships using spores and stuff like that. And so I thought all that was very interesting, but I just feel like it was a little long for certain parts. Like certain parts I just wish we got a little more adventure, or like a different location or something. And I think it was just mainly that being on the ship for so long just wasn't my favorite. I definitely am happy I read it. It just isn't my favorite Sanderson or my favorite cozy fantasy, but it was good. So then I read the third book to the Libba Bray series, The Diviners, and I am just obsessed with the series. I'm so happy I read it. I really don't know why I never heard of the series before, because honestly I loved Libba Bray's other series, so this would have been right up my alley. But if you don't know, this is 1920s in New York, and there's people called diviners who have magic that they can do different things with, like dream walking or touching objects and being able to get their history from it. And this is third one, and so the first two had like their own mysteries wrapping up, but hints to the bigger plot, and this one definitely dove way more into the bigger things that are happening here. They're all so good. But I would say they're darker, and I would look up trigger warnings, especially, at least for me, in this one. We deal with a character, and her backstory is kind of talked about a lot more. And what she goes through it was very triggering for me to just read about, and it was detailed. That's one thing about Libba Bray, is like she doesn't shy away from talking about a lot of topics. I really appreciate that about her, but it was just, this one was hard to read, especially because I love the audiobooks. January Lavoie does a really good job, but listening to it, I had to skip parts because it was just too much for me. But overall, it was such a good book, and I think probably my favorite book so far in the series was this one. Just so much happened and so much culminated in this ending that I can't wait to see what the fourth book does, even though I know a lot of people hate it. And so I'm really interested to see why people dislike it so much. I think that the one thing I've really taken away from this is that while we're talking about diviners and this whole supernatural paranormal thing that's going on, really it's a lot of exploration into America and the things America likes to hide and sweep under the rug and pretend don't exist, and how those things still come to the surface and still cause so much harm in the long run. And I feel like the way she does it is just so good. And also, I would still enjoy this book very much, but without the audiobook, I don't know if I would love it as much as I do, because January Lavoie really makes those characters just come to life on the page, and that's one of the reasons why I've loved this series so much. So if you're looking for a book that you really want to read on audio, and you're just looking for really good audio, I would check out this one. So last two are also very big wins for this month, and I'm so happy for it. So this one is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, and this is a literary fiction story following these two siblings, and their mother has just passed. Their father had passed a while before, and now finally their mother has passed, and they have been estranged due to an event that we know occurred during Thanksgiving 5 years prior. And they're coming back together to look at the will and all this stuff, and their mother left a video that they have, or not a video, but a audio that they need to listen to, and she basically says, I want you to share this black cake that she made that's in the freezer when the time is right. It's just so well done, and such a story about grief and loss and all those things, but also just a family and the things that they do to survive, and how you can just, it's a generational story. And I loved it so much. I can't really describe it in the best way. It's just a beautiful story, and I love literary fiction. I found that I can really enjoy it, but it does take me a while. I read this throughout the entire month, and it took me the entire month to read this, but I don't think that that's a testament to the book. It's just, that's how I tend to read it. And I really feel like because of that, this story stuck with me so much, because I pick it up and I read a couple chapters and I put it down, and I could not stop thinking about it through the whole month. And it's something I still think about now. It was just a story that really sucked you in to the lives of these characters, and they felt so real, and I could feel their love and their pain and all this stuff. And also the writing was beautiful. So I highly recommend this. I know it's been a lot of people's favorites, and also has gotten really good reviews, and I really think it's totally worth the good reviews. And then the last one I think is probably my favorite book of the month. I'm trying to look at my stack. I think it might be. It was one of those unexpected favorites. It was kind of like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, where I didn't think that it would be a favorite when I was reading it, but I can't stop thinking about it, and I just love it even more when I finished it than I thought I would. And I already read another one of their works in March, so I just know that this author is going to be one of my new favorites, and that is The Midnight Bargain by C.L. Polk. I read this also for the Transrate Readathon. I really really love this book. It is a historical fantasy. It's like kind of lighter on the fantasy elements, and I don't know if it ever tells you what year it's supposed to be, but it definitely gives Regency vibes to me. So we're following our main character, Beatrice, and she wants to be a sorceress, basically. Women are basically not allowed to use magic once they are of childbearing age and once they are like married. So when they get married, they have to wear these collars that make their magic go away, and they can't take it off until their husband lets them take it off, because if they are pregnant while they don't have the collar on, their magic will cause their child to become like an evil wizard and like stuff. A lot of bad things happen. So they make women wear these collars so that they can have babies and the babies be fine. And then years and years later, if their husband allows it, they're allowed to take off the collar. So it's really a lot about just women's bodies and how women are constantly being controlled, and it's really a commentary on all that. And in this, Beatrice is getting to the age where she needs to be married, and she does not want to lose her magic. Her magic is like everything to her. All she wants to do is become a magus, which is reserved for men who study magic and really like become masters of it. And in this world, you get like a spirit that binds with you, and that's how you have your magic. So you have to start with like lesser spirits and work your way up to a greater spirit and then bind them, but it's really, really hard. And so without proper training and years of training, it's almost impossible for a woman to do this because only men are allowed this training. So she's trying to figure out how to make sure her family isn't ruined, because they really need her to get married for the money and things like that, but also how to not lose her magic. And there's a romance in here. There's a friendship story as well, because she meets another woman who also is in a similar predicament as her. And there's asexual representation in here as well. And I just think this whole book was so good. And it's really a romance fantasy, but I think that the commentary of it and the conversations that come up throughout this book were so good, and I really, really, really loved it. So this is definitely a new favorite, and it was kind of an unexpected favorite because I thought I would like it, but I didn't know I would love it as much as I did. So I'm really happy I picked this one up, and if you are looking for historical romance fantasy, I would give it a try. So those are all the books I read in the month of March. I feel like I've been having a really good reading year so far, just reading whatever I want to and just kind of picking up what I feel like. And I think that's why I'm having such a good time with my books, is because I've read, things I don't talk about really is that I do pick up a lot of books and then I put them down if I'm not really feeling it. So that's why I tend to not have like lower reviews, because I just also kind of softy enough a lot of things. So I had a couple books I picked up and put down throughout the month. So I want people to know that like this is really because I liked the books enough to keep going. So that's why I don't really tend to give low ratings. Not that I need to justify that, I guess, but here we are. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. Please let me know what you read down below in the comments. I would love to hear what you read this month, what your thoughts were on the books you read, and if you've read any of these and you have any recommendations for books like them, I would love to hear it. So yeah, thank you for watching again, and I will see you next time.